Okay, thank you for coming out to Summerfest 2024. My name is Nick. We are obviously here at 034 Motorsport. Thank you for joining us, Charles. This is our 15th open house in the summertime. So who here has joined us in one of the previous years of running this show? Good bit of hands. Who has joined on a shop tour out of that crew? Okay, a fair bit. So a lot of new faces, a lot of new experiences. That's fantastic. So for those that don't know, 034 Motorsport is a hardware and software engineering company that develops upgraded components for every single Audi or Volkswagen you could physically imagine to improve both the handling, power, drivability, and sporting dynamics of the car without ruining the quality of it. You still want to drive this car to work, not rattle your significant other to death when you're going to dinner, but have as much fun on the on-ramp and off-ramp as you can, right? So we have two sides of the business here. On this side, we're at ZTF Automotive, which is our service branch of the company. We have this location here in Fremont, California, and another one in San Jose, California, dedicated for anything from oil changes all the way to engine builds. So you want to get anything done, this is the team to talk to. On the other side here, we have 034 Motorsport, where we design and manufacture all the parts you've probably seen today, own, or want to win in the raffle today. So we're going to walk through a few tight areas, a few large areas. Bear with me, get tight with your neighbors, say hello, and we'll go see some fun stuff. Any questions before we begin? Okay, then we're going to go through and see what we find. Yep, absolutely. Come on through this door. We're going to head into the dyno room. Okay, so we are in the dyno cell of 034 Motorsport. Everywhere in which we develop a software component for any car starts and finishes in this room. There are many places it goes in between, but ultimately this is where the bread and butter happens. So when you say I want to buy a tune for my car to make it go fast, this is how we make it. In here is where our engineering team starts the reverse engineering process of figuring out how the factory car runs and how the factory ECU in the car manages the engine. Then, as we strip away the layers and figure out how it works, we optimize the power both safely and efficiently. These ECUs aren't like your phone. You can't just go into settings and turn the brightness up or turn your volume up. It's an incredibly complex architecture of computer systems that are entirely locked down from the factory. They don't want us touching it. It's over 55,000 different files and maps that you need to define, figure out how they connect. They're almost entirely in German, and figure out what they do for the ECU. Once you've done that, you can then tune it for safe and aggressive power. The big thing that we use this room for is simulating real-world scenarios that are just too unsafe to go do at any point in location. This rolling road or dyno cell simulates the actual weight and resistance of this actual car on the road at whatever mile an hour it runs at, all the way up to about 155. That fan up here can simulate real wind speed or less depending on altitude to simulate what kind of temperature is going through the radiator and high heat and low heat scenarios. We have an active weather station in the dyno room that's keeping track of the conditions in here to make compensations and adjustments according to what the actual temperature is here and scale the software to work in different conditions and scenarios as well. Software tuning is a very nuanced thing. Making power is quite easy, actually. Making the power safely and reliably in every scenario that you're going to drive the car is the hard part. So we spend anywhere from 6 months to 2 years on any file to ensure that it is run safely and correctly for these cars. You know, these are big investments and you want it to work every time you get in it. So we put the time in here to make sure it works for you at home. Any questions about tuning? I know that was a lot of data dump. What's it cost to do a dyno run? More than you can afford, pal. More than you can afford, pal. The dyno cell is not open for public runs because we constantly have development vehicles running for testing. We only have one dyno here, but we have 14 test vehicles. So there's a constant flow of cars in and cars out for various developments. As you may notice, our website covers a lot of cars, which keeps our engineers very busy. You'll see the room that they operate in there, and they're always poking for the next dyno slot, right? So with that, we've not opened the dyno to the public for the last few years to keep the focus on the products that we sell to you guys. He asked, do we get noise complaints? Yes. We don't run the dyno past business hours, just to be nice. There are some houses down in the area. And we don't run super crazy exhausts on the cars on purpose. None of these cars are straight piped or anything like that. We keep catalysts on the cars, we keep mufflers on the cars to be nice to the neighbors and the environment. How long is it typical? It could be anywhere from 6 months to 2 years or longer. We still have a file, actually it's in development at year 4 now. that just needs to go through certain development levels before we can approve it. So along with the rolling dyno testing that we do in here, we will go to racetracks, drag strips, high elevation, cold temperature locations all across the country and globally with other partners that we have internationally to test scenarios that we can't replicate here. Just last weekend, we had all of our shop vehicles at Laguna Seca doing some high heat, high degradation running to really put the cars to the limit into the test and make sure that they're running safely. So it all comes down to whether that is successful or whether we need to go back and go through the work again and go back out and retest, right? All comes down, but we're not going to rush it to the process at the end of the day. Have we run the Merc blower? That black B8S4 has got it on the car right in there. So we got the blower first and have spent the last 8 months with it, calibrating and developing with Jose. He was out here last week to see the fruit of the labors. And we've got some additional fueling system components running on that car to get the most out of the blower. This is for a S4 3-liter. And it's making good power. It's a solid upgrade for the car. I cannot tell you how much just yet, but you'll enjoy it. Absolutely. Okay. We can certainly ask more questions as we go through the tour, but for now, we'll go ahead and file back through this door. And for those out, so we are now on the manufacturing side of 034 Motorsport. So when you click buy on our website or through any one of our dealers, one of our trained guys back here is going to run up these shelves. If we have it built and ready to go, send it over to our shipping team and get it out the door almost always same day. If we don't have it pre-built and ready, they're grabbing one of every single component you can see on the table here today and putting the products together, quality controlling them, and making sure they're up to our rigorous standards of our products. So one thing that 034 does that not really anybody else in this industry does is we look at a car from the front to back, top to bottom, as a holistic upgrade. We don't just do tuning, we don't just do an intake, we don't just do brakes, we don't just do sway bars. We look at the car as a package and try to figure out how we can best make that car perform across a wide variety of applications. So our entire catalog aims to do that in various unique ways. We call this the dynamic plus difference. You know, we look at the car as a full being, not just one component. And we really feel like once the car's outfitted with the catalog, it becomes an entirely new vehicle. We always aim to have this be effectively like Audi and Volkswagen would have provided it to you, only at a significantly higher level of performance possibility. So running through some of the products we have here on the table, we do upgraded engine mount components that emulate the OEM factory style mount, however with a stiffer durometer rubber to reduce deflection and ultimately be more durable at higher power, but not have too much additional vibrations, all the way up to our Billet Motorsport line of motor mounts, which can handle 1,500 plus horsepower. We've yet to see one break. We'll see. We need people to go higher in horsepower to figure out the limit. Moving down the line is a product that we pioneered here at 034 Motorsport, which is the insert for factory mounts. So you want to upgrade your engine and transmission mounts, but you don't want vibration and you don't want to spend a ton of money on a product. There's all these open spots in the mount for it to move. Audi and Volkswagen put this in for the daily driver, the average person that doesn't care about the performance. They want it to be smooth and filter out everything on the road. We make these products to fill those voids without increasing vibration, but increase the responsiveness and directness of your drivetrain. Moving down the line even further, we have some of our upgraded two-piece braking products. Audi and Volkswagen loves to put terrible brakes on every car they provide. It's actually unbelievable. It gives us something to do, thankfully. So we upgrade the brakes on pretty much every Audi and Volkswagen we make products for high temperature grade and high airflow two-piece rotors, as well as upcoming brake pads and big brake kits as well. So we aim to fully overhaul brake systems on Audi so that they can stop as fast as they go, right? It's not important as how fast you can go, it's how quickly you can stop. Moving down the line even further is some of our suspension upgrades. We make lowering springs and sway bars to improve the handling of these cars as well as how they sit and overall ride quality. But most importantly, we make these products per car. You might go to someone else's website and see a spring fits 17 versions of a car. Your Mark 7 GTI spring can fit a Taos, it can fit a Jetta, it can fit a Golf R, it can fit a Tiguan, all those things. We make a spring per car. Every one of these cars has a different balance. Every one of these cars has a different purpose. So we make each one of these products to that specific car to suit its best need. No one car handles the same, so we want to optimize for it. We're not platform generic, we're car specific. And that goes into our sway bars as well. We don't just add stiffness and send it out the door. We go through 9, 10, 20 revisions of these various springs and sway bar products until it has the right balance. We want these cars to be safe and fun, and it does take time to do that, and almost nobody else in the industry does that type of work. Further down are some of our suspension upgrades as well, replacing some factory control arms that are often failure points on those cars. We create upgraded components that remove that failure point and add more durability, as well as camber improvement and alignment improvement components to make the car handle really like it should almost in every condition, as well as various chassis stiffening components. These cars are a little bit wet noodleish from the factory, so we add in very specifically strengthened components to improve the chassis dynamics and deflection in the chassis so that the car is applying the force to the road, not in twisting itself. Further down the line are some of our power adding components or power supporting components, such as our carbon fiber intakes and plastic intakes scattered around here. The intakes don't add power, they reduce restriction. So they allow us, when we're making our calibrations, to work the turbo more freely without restriction from pulling air into it. These are really important things to make the car work less hard and make the power that you want it to make reliably, and they make great sounds. Lastly are some of our exhaust and other mounting components strewn about the room that address some of the auditory pleasure you guys might want from your exhaust without being too drony or uncomfortable for the day-to-day drive. It was always going to be one. That's all right. Feel free to come on around, grab as many of these things as you want. We counted all the inserts. We have cameras. We'll see where they go. I'll be walking around here, happy to answer any questions. Before we start that, is there any larger level questions you guys have here? Adjustable for the B&I SQ5. They're actually in development and testing on that white one outside. That's been the last year or so, just making sure that they're safe. It's a much heavier car, and with air ride, those often have a larger height change, so we're testing a newer inner bushing to make sure that that is robust over long-term periods. So, got to put in the work, right?
How would electric cars change your whole business?
That's a great question. Electric cars are built almost entirely the same. The mounts have give, the suspension is rather plush, but the big focus on electric cars is noise isolation. So it does change a lot of what we target with these products. So on a gas car, there's a lot of other noises of gearbox, engine, exhaust that is covering general noises that go on in the car. So you might install a spring and hear no difference, but you put that same spring on an electric car, all of a sudden the car is super loud. So in our development procedures, we've actually been testing on some electric cars here locally. We are working more on noise isolation in those instances. So the goal is still better performance, but the constraints are a bit different than your gas car. As far as power adders go, there's actually a lot available on the table. The modifications aren't adding an exhaust, but the concepts of freer flow, more delivery of power still hold true. So while we haven't gotten into the nitty-gritty of those just yet, we are excited to get into it. Grab as much as you want. I'll be here answering questions and getting off of our products. We'll take some time. Come on in. So this room, we're going to use some imagination. Close your eyes, think of ones and zeros, think of binary numbers, think of computers. This is where all that magic happens. So our software engineering team and our calibration team, when they're not on the dyno, they're in here digging into all the data that they collected on the dyno and going through those ECUs that they were working on to develop the software products that we're providing and you guys are using on your cars. Additionally, any of our other Skunkworks products and projects are being worked on in here. Some of you might see a rack of turbochargers behind you. There might be a transmission in one of those racks. Various different higher level things happen in here to make all of the larger level products that you guys see in our software and some of our hardware as well. One of the big notable things we've come out with in the last year is our mobile flashing application and Bluetooth flashing dongle kit. So rather than working with a third party where we don't have a ton of control over how that system works, we brought an entire software team in-house to develop the flashing protocols, the server itself, the actual chip boards and computer processors of the flashing cables themselves to ultimately have the best connection and fastest flashing existence on the car. So we do all this work internally to make sure that we can bake in all the feature sets that we want you guys to have. So this chip here is built for the next 15 years of connections that we're not even using today, but we're thinking about how do we add more features and more capabilities to this product as years to come so that your product doesn't age out. That goes to another thing that we do a little differently is we don't just make a tune and say, cool, you bought it, you gave us your money, fantastic, goodbye. We support every single product that we make for the lifetime of however long anyone owns it. And that means that we're constantly working to improve, iterate, and refine things even after release. Technology improves. You go look at your iPhone 4 from 10 years ago, it's vastly different than your iPhone 15 today, right? We look at our software the same way. The technology that we have today may not be as advanced as tomorrow, so we're always taking a look back at our products to determine if there's extra room for either more safety features, more user comfort features or convenience features, or even more performance. That kind of work takes time, and we always aim to do that work for everything that we make. Just 2 weeks ago, we released an update for a B5 tune. These cars are 15, 20 years old in some cases, and we still found a way to make that more seamless. Hell, we're adding it to our mobile flasher at some point. So we're always working towards these opportunities to make our product even better for you guys as time goes on. Some of those features like advanced launch control, flex fuel integration, and things like that have all either been in the works or are currently in the works to add to as many other platforms as well. So that's software. Questions?
Is your team using AI at all?
AI doesn't exactly have the experience of calibration. So while it can be a good tool to make you a conversion table for simple math, it's not something that we implement for calibration. At some point, AI log review tools might be something that's integrated into our flashing system. I can't confirm or deny that. But AI in general is a nice addition. It can't replace the skill set, right? There's other characteristics that require a little more qualitative thinking in calibration than just ones and zeros. Good question, though.
What's the story behind the hood?
So the remnants of a hood here is from our first development B9 S4 ahead of a drag day that we had it scheduled in 2022. We just put the TT810 turbo on it, and we were gunning for right around a 9-second quarter mile. The car was there, and 2 days before the event, while we were testing the car on the road, it caught fire. The PCV system in the car itself actually failed. So 35 pounds of boost pressure shot directly into the crankcase of the engine, shot the oil cap right off, and spewed oil all over the hood. And at 140 miles an hour, that quickly turns into a fire. So we lost the car. The driver was okay, our calibrator was okay, which is good. But we still had our event. We had our event, we paid for it, we booked it, it was our big plan. So at 2 in the morning when we got the car back here and it was clear, like, okay, this thing's toast, what do we do? Well, I hit Auto Tempest at 2:30 and sent an email at 3 saying, hey, here's 3 B9s locally. At 8:30 the next day, we made the call. We were going to buy a car and overnight build it into that same catalog car. We had all the parts on the shelf. We had some stuff off the burnt car we were able to reuse. Turbos were okay. The injectors were okay. The high-pressure fuel pump was okay. Even the brakes were fine. So we pulled a bunch off of that car. We reused the intercooler. We pulled a bunch of stuff off of that car, bought a brand new car, or brand used car from the BMW of Stevens Creek down the road. They drove it here at 3 o'clock. We signed the papers. Before the papers were even signed, we started stripping the car. And 12 hours later, it did 670 wheel on our dyno at 2 or 3 in the morning. And then at 3 o'clock the next day, full 24 hours, like couldn't even script this. It does a 10:01, so of course it didn't hit the 9. But for a 24-hour, no prep, just put it on. It had fully stock suspension, stock mounts, the thing squatted like a pig. But we were super proud of the effort, and ultimately, like, everyone worked in it. Kenji was scrubbing parts in the parts washer, our hardware support guys. We had tech stay late. Everyone just pitched in hours. Kyle, you were wrenching, got off the camera and started helping out. That was a project that we all just bared down and said we want to make this happen. So we actually have a video on YouTube called Ashes to Asphalt, where we were able to document some of that and show the whole story. We got in there and realized, hey, this is pretty cool. We can't do this all the time. So we had never done something like that before. I don't think many people have. But it was a cool testament to the catalog that we've built, that overnight in 12 hours we were able to build a car from stock from the dealer to 670 wheel horsepower, capable of 2.37 0 to 60 is what it managed. Pretty unbelievable. We've gone through a few of the B9s since then. Our third one is outside over there in the rack that you can see on display. Yeah. Good question, though. Thank you. Any other questions?
Why do you have gauge clusters on the top of the shelf?
So we used to run the 25 hours of Thunderhill. We campaigned an Audi TTRS VLN car. And this came out of one of the donor cars because the ECU had failed in the VLN car 12 hours before the race. So Nate drove back from Thunderhill back here, stripped the cluster immobilizer system out of our shop TTRS, the ECU, got it to work with the race car, quickly patched it in, and we won the race 25 hours later. So I guess we do this more often than I think. It just goes to show, stuff happens, but you just got to work through it and make the result. Any other questions?
Is there anything that you would say is unique to an 034 tune versus like other products like
Absolutely.
LPR, Unitronic, and stuff like that?
So ultimately, the support following the purchase, I think, is a really unique piece. Our products don't have an end of life. They're always getting updates. If you bought a tune 6 years ago, it's very likely you could flash onto our server right now and you'll see a revision 7, right? A new version of that file that we're adding new architecture and systems to. That just doesn't happen ubiquitously across the community or across the customer base. So that's a unique thing that we'll do, but also it's the dedication to safety. I can count on one finger how many companies track their cars monthly. Every single one of our cars sees the most aggressive abuse you can physically imagine. If we can't break it, then you're probably in good shape. Marketing is known for breaking cars. We get in there to do it. And if I can't break it, then it's not going to break. So that level of significant testing at the track. So if you look in some of the cars over there, the extra sensors that we add to these cars to add even higher levels of data that Chris spends hours logging and refining, one of our calibrators here, who burned the car down. Thanks, Chris. He will spend that significant amount of time to make sure the car is running safely and accurately. There's all these safety systems in these ECUs that are a total rat's nest to figure out how they work and where they engage. For example, we took my B9 SQ5 on the racetrack 3 years ago, early into stage 1 development. It got up to 282 degrees oil temperature and just shut off, right on the track. Just shut off, through a corner and everything. What the hell just happened? We go through later and we're able to work it back. There was a safety program in the ECU that engaged at that temperature range under that load amount that ultimately was so far out of its range it just killed the party. So where many companies may run into that, they just turn it off because they go, oh, you're not getting to 282, right? But you might. What we then do is we go back through, we figure out where that engages and rescale that and recalibrate it to be a properly functional safety system. So it'll still pull power, it'll reduce temperatures or do what it can to ultimately keep the car running safely without putting you in an unsafe scenario or without turning it off in general. That dedication to the safety systems in the ECU, like I said, the power, you can do it in a weekend. It's all of getting it to run properly for years to come that puts all the time and energy into it. Some companies in the industry do that quite well as well. Certainly some don't. But I can say with confidence, knowing that we've hired engineers from just about every other company in our space, named included, from some of those you've named, we do more than anyone else.
No check engine lights.
No check engine lights?
Yeah, with their tune.
Well, sometimes. We're still going to show you a check engine if something was wrong. It is a Volkswagen. It can only do so much. Sometimes they come with them with a check engine. Exactly. That's exactly right. I'm seeing a lot of fans here. It's getting hot. We'll move through. So we're going to stop the last part of our tour here in the engineering hardware room. This is where all of the hard parts are built. This is an even smaller room. So like I said, smallest room in the building, but arguably the most stuff comes out of it. This is our hardware engineering room where every single 034 Motorsport product is created. Whether it starts as a render on a computer, all the way through to the printed prototypes you'll see printing throughout the room and strewn about, to the final product ready for release. Our hardware engineering team utilizes just about every single bit of technology you can use to design products in today's day and age, all the way from 3D scanning the cars themselves to get a full virtual model, engineering within CAD and using stress testing and flow testing features within software programs to confirm it is both strong enough and high flowing and high potential enough for whatever we are making the product for, and then validating that with printed prototypes, actual physical prototypes, and test benches outside the bay here as well. So for all of our intakes to go, not only do they see virtual CFD flow testing, they get real world flow bench testing to confirm they meet what we're looking for, and then they hit the dyno to confirm that they don't have the pressure drop that we're trying to get rid of, right? So in here and in this building, we validate everything that we make. Look at you, poking right through. Like I said, everything comes in and out of this room. It's pretty fantastic what we're able to do with new technology. For example, Sometimes you just need to print a hard component to figure out a physical constraint. Sometimes you need to print a soft component to see how would I install a hose here. Would that flex? Would that work for me? We have all those abilities internally, even as strong as high temperature, high carbon printed products that we can install in the car up to temperature in high heat and high load scenarios to make sure that the fit and finish of it is perfect before we spend a good bit of money to make the molds and do the first machined product, right? Another fun thing that we can do with some of the engineering work in here is just validation of the product. So you might see some fixtures that we'll create to confirm things are in specs, or our QC team has a quicker time to make sure the products are actually how they should every time they come in from a production run. We manufacture products both locally in-house as well as with one of our brand partners, 034 Motorsport Group in Los Angeles. So we have a 150,000 square foot warehouse with a couple dozen CNC machines that can help ease some of the load here. For those that have been here for a few years previous, we used to have 2 CNCs back there. When we saw there 24, we figured, okay, we'll donate to the cause and we'll do all of it in one place. So that means ultimately, some of it is not made directly in this building, but it all comes here for validation, QC, and holds up to our rigorous standards. Awesome. Thank you guys for joining. Appreciate it.